Why did Russia invade Ukraine? A question that has reverberated across the globe. Let's delve into the history and events that led up to this significant moment. The historical ties between Russia and Ukraine are intricate and deep-seated. The shared cultural history of these two nations is a factor that cannot be ignored. President Putin of Russia perceives Ukrainians and Russians as one people. This perception, coupled with the threat he perceives from Ukraine aligning with the West, provides a backdrop to the conflict. In this complex tapestry of geopolitics, narratives have been spun to justify actions. One such narrative is the notion of Ukrainian Nazis, a tale spun despite a lack of concrete evidence, used as a smokescreen to justify intervention. Personal ambitions and the desire for a lasting historical legacy also likely played a part in the decision to invade. The timing of the invasion may have been influenced by a perceived shift in Ukraine's President Zelensky's alignment with Russia, following his election in 2019. As we can see, the roots of this conflict are deeply interwoven with history and geopolitics. So, what was the spark that ignited this conflict? Let's turn our attention to the pivotal year of 2019. Ukraine saw a significant political shift with the election of President Zelensky. Initially, his political stance appeared to align with Russia, creating a sense of tranquility on the surface. However, as time passed, a subtle shift began to emerge. Zelensky's alignment started tilting towards the West, stirring the calm waters of the Russo-Ukrainian relationship. Now, let's not forget about another major player in this drama, Vladimir Putin. Putin has a strong desire for a historical legacy, and he views Ukrainians and Russians as one people. The idea of Ukraine aligning with the West didn't sit well with him, and this disagreement served as a fuse, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. Also, there's the narrative of Ukrainian Nazis, a notion used to justify intervention, despite the lack of substantial evidence. In this increasingly tense climate, Putin's personal motivations likely played a significant role in the decision to invade. The shifting political landscape in Ukraine and Putin's ambitions set the stage for the events that were to unfold. As the conflict escalated, other global players were inevitably drawn in. Let's examine Israel's role in this situation. Historically, Israel has maintained a strict neutrality in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The nation's former Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, even nurtured a close relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, under the leadership of Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, Israel's stance began to shift. As the war intensified, Israel started providing intelligence and technical support to Ukraine. This shift could be attributed to a few factors. One, a reduced Russian presence in Syria presented Israel with an opportunity to test its defense systems against Iranian weapons. Two, there was an underlying desire to improve relations with the Biden administration in the United States. These factors, combined with the escalating conflict, nudged Israel towards a more active role in supporting Ukraine. The dynamics of the global stage were changing, and Israel's shift in stance added another layer of complexity to the conflict. While many nations condemned Russia's actions, China maintained a different stance. Let's explore the implications of this. Deep defense sector ties between China and Russia have been a significant part of their relationship, with Chinese state-owned defense firms continuing trade with sanctioned Russian defense companies. Despite the global outcry, these firms have been sending shipments, including helicopter parts, to Russia. This has led to concerns about the potential for China to provide lethal aid to Moscow. Despite these fears, China has been firm in its denial of providing weapons to either side, emphasizing instead its commitment to dialogue and peace. But the ongoing trade activities between Chinese and Russian defense firms inevitably raise questions. China's involvement, or lack thereof, raises questions about the extent of its support for Russia during the conflict. In the course of 5 minutes, we've traveled through a complex web of geopolitics, history, and personal ambitions. We've explored the deep-seated historical and cultural ties between Russia and Ukraine, and the shifts in Ukraine's political alignment that have added fuel to the conflict. We delved into Israel's evolving stance, with the return of Netanyahu hinting at a potential policy shift towards more active support for Ukraine, driven by a complex mix of geopolitical and domestic considerations. We've also examined China's role, with its continued trade relationships with Russian defense companies raising concerns, despite Beijing's assurances of its commitment to dialogue and peace. This intricate dance of alliances and interests, of power and strategy, creates a picture that is as fascinating as it is alarming. While we may not have all the answers, understanding the background and key players involved helps us to make sense of why Russia invaded Ukraine. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history and geopolitics.